Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips. I had to think about what day it was for a minute. Couple of announcements. Summer semester is coming soon, and we offer some great classes. I'm teaching women's health, the long version. I'm teaching the diet, well, we are offering the diet lifestyle intervention course. That's the 15 module course I've talked about that covers, it's an overview of everything ranging from children's health, men's health, cancer, autoimmune disease, gastrointestinal diseases, basics of nutrition and nutritional science, and all that sort of thing. So teaching that, and then biology, which is part of our nutrition educator program. The career conference call, professional development, coming up on May 24th. I don't think you want to miss it. If you're interested in learning about what's going on in healthcare from our perspective. We work with people every day and we hear from people in the healthcare system every day. We don't know everything about it, but we've been at it for 26 years. We have a pretty good handle on the marketplace, and we also offer some great training programs here. And then remember, coming up soon, with the Curious About COVID workshops continue. If you're a non-member, you can do one of those one time. And then the COVID, Lose the COVID 25 and Health Lessons from COVID, also coming up along with my COVID vaccine course on June 14th. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, panpopper@msn.com. And then also, if you're interested in getting involved with MakeAmericansFreeAgain.com, take a look at what we're doing. We're doing a lot of very productive things. I talk about those things on Wednesdays and Fridays. So I want to talk about happiness. It might seem like a strange time to talk about happiness because mostly I think we're experiencing people who are pretty unhappy. And I know some of you are not real happy. I can tell by the reasons or the emails that you send me and some of the things that are going on in your life. A lot of people have good reasons for being unhappy. Have you noticed you don't even have to ask people about their unhappiness? Sometimes they will just volunteer to tell anybody around them how unhappy they are. And we've seen that here. I mean, we've always taken calls from people about all kinds of things, but people call here when they're not these days, when they're unhappy with their neighbors, when they have questions about leaking roofs and dating services and all kinds of things. I mean, I'm glad people feel they can call here and talk about anything, but I think it's just indicative of the fact that people are feeling unhappy and disconnected. And you know, we are having an epidemic, an actual epidemic of unhappiness that's been going on for about 15 months now. The good news is that there is a cure for unhappiness. It's choosing to be happy. And I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes and saying, oh my gosh. But Abraham Lincoln once said, quote, most people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. And Abe was right. Many people have lots to be miserable about, and they still choose to be happy. They don't want to be unhappy. They don't allow themselves to be held hostage by the situations in which they find themselves. And they don't outsource their happiness and their state of mind to situations and people and things. I've learned to do this. I mean, I used to be a very unhappy person. Not that I would have self-identified that way, but I think if you watched me for a while, you would have figured out that there was something not quite right in my world. I realized that I was unhappy for a whole lot of reasons, but two were maybe the most important. The first one was that I made the same bad choices again and again. And then I chose to be unhappy about the situations that I found myself in, a lot of them in response to my bad choices. Now, I mentioned a long time ago, and I've talked about a lot of things in these videos that are personal. I spent some time in Al-Anon while living with an alcoholic and drug abusing boyfriend. And I learned a lot of very important things. And one of them was that I could stop making bad choices, which is not as easy as you might think it is because bad choices had become a habit and habits are hard to change. But I did eventually start making better choices. And the more I did it, the more crystal clear it became to me that I had a choice. I mean, that I actually could do something different. And I was repeating the same thing again and again. So if you're in that rut of choosing badly, and by the way, it doesn't have to be drug dealing or robbing a bank. When I talk about making bad choices, I mean, just even getting up in the morning and not choosing the right activities for the day. I just was not being very proactive for myself. But stopping yourself from continual self-destruction, which is what I managed to do, it doesn't mean that you won't find yourself in an unhappy place due to things that other people do and things outside of your control, like our last 15 months. And this is where Lincoln's advice becomes really, really important. You can stay happy anyway. And I'm just going to share with you a few of the things that I think make a difference, that allow me to be happier. I mean, I'm not always, singing in the rain, I've had my bad days too, but here are things that I think help me stay happy when things are not going great. All right. The first one is gratitude. There is always something to be grateful for, and it can be really basic. An old friend of mine who died a few years ago used to say, if you got up this morning and you live in the United States of America and you have enough to eat today, you're better off than most people. And it really is sometimes that simple. So there are always things to be grateful for if we just stop and think about it. And Dr. Peter Bregan, the very famous psychiatrist who's writing a fabulous book you're going to want to know about very soon, says it's hard to be unhappy and depressed while in a state of gratitude. Another thing, smile. I try to smile even when I'm home by myself. Research actually shows that your facial expressions influence your thoughts just like your thoughts influence your facial expressions. So what you have to ask yourself is, are you in this feedback loop of I'm feeling miserable, I'm frowning, that makes me feel worse, and etc. And here's another thing, and this is particularly important right now. I think people feel better when they help others. And if you're going out and about and you smile at somebody else, they sometimes smile back at you. And then you've done a good thing for somebody. So if you can't get yourself motivated to smile just so that you feel better, maybe you'll smile because it would make somebody else feel better. Start your day with a morning routine that makes you happy. And I do that. I get up in the morning, and one of the first things that I do is I feed my kitty, of course, and I have my little morning routine. I make my toast, and I brew a cup of coffee, and clean up the kitchen a little bit, and give Schroeder his thyroid medication, and I read. I never go straight to the computer. I always sit down and I read through our stupid newspaper because I got to know what's going on in my area right now. But I also read something else. I'm always reading a book, and I'm always reading magazines and periodicals and special newspapers and all that kind of stuff. And then once I've kind of gotten myself acclimated for the day, and I love reading, by the way. If you don't like reading, it might not be the best morning routine for you, but I love reading. So starting my day by doing something I really enjoy is a good way for me to put myself in a very good frame of mind. Discipline yourself to work on yourself. I mean, I've talked about this briefly before. Working on myself made me a better person, and being a better person made me happier in general. I mean, nothing is worse than feeling disappointed in yourself, and I know that about myself. And it's impossible to live a life where you're never disappointed in yourself. I mean, every week I probably say something I shouldn't have said, or maybe I'm a little short with somebody and have to apologize for it. I mean, those things happen, and I think you can set yourself up for a lot of misery by just trying to be perfect, and I don't try to do that either. But if we work on ourselves and we get better, it makes everything better. Mostly it makes ourselves better. That's maybe another one of those gifts for other people. When I stopped acting out into self-destructive ways, it was really good for me. I think it was also really, really good for other people around me too. Get something done, or get a few things done. I always feel better when I do something, and it doesn't have to be huge. And I'll give you an example. Last weekend, I came into my office. I'm in my office every weekend. And I had all these things I wanted to hang up, and they'd been on the floor forever. And I'd look at them and think, I got to get to that. And really needed to be cleaned in here and just picked up and all that kind of stuff. And I some of these were paintings that I did, like this one behind me that you see here. That's I painted that myself. But another one, I want to show you this, and this made me smile. So my friend Patty, who I go to painting classes with, does this diamond art. And I want to show you this picture of Schroeder that she did. So I'm going to go to screen share, and this is now hanging on my wall, and I'll show it to you. This is a picture of my little buddy Schroeder on his little mat in our office at home. He was a lot younger in this picture than he is now. He's almost 17 years old. Still living a happy kitty cat life, even at this age. He'll be 17 in August. We count every day as a blessing in my house. But this is right across. I look at this when I'm sitting at my desk in the office, and this makes me smile. So it made me happy when I got my office cleaned up. It made me happy when I hung the pictures on the wall that weren't hung up, and it made me very happy when Patty gave me this picture. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful gift. And I showed her this morning when she came in to work out that it was hanging in my office. And everybody who's come in here makes a comment about it. And most of the people who come in here know about Schroeder and they've seen him on pictures and that sort of thing. But this is really, really special and one of those forever gifts that'll hang there. So that made me real happy. So I'll go back to not sharing now. And then get healthy. Oh, you had to expect that coming from me, right? It's easier to be happy when you feel better physically. So lose weight, eat well, drink water, sleep soundly, exercise. You know, it's worth it. Investing in yourself is going to make you happier. Just the act of doing it. I told somebody that I spoke with this afternoon that health cannot be achieved and happiness actually cannot be achieved. A happy life and a good life is hard to achieve when you always put yourself last and you never put yourself first. And so, and the other thing too, sometimes people will say, well, putting myself first is really selfish. I should put my family first. The ultimate act of selfishness, and I can tell you this from personal experience in my own family, is thinking that taking care of yourself is selfish, and then you become unhealthy and you end up inflicting your unhealthy self on your family for a couple decades, like what my mother did to our family. So take care of yourself. When you feel better physically, you'll feel better psychologically. Be kind to others even when you don't want to. And sometimes how I feel the best about myself is when somebody who's really despicable to me, and I don't mean people saying inappropriate things or ethnic slurs, I don't mean that kind of thing, but just when somebody lashes out because they're just miserable and I can be kind to them anyway, because that's an act of kindness to see somebody else hurting. And you probably have heard this before, but to see somebody else hurting and then respond differently than just lashing back out at them, right? But I wanted to finish that thought before I move on to the next thing. But I remember, and you probably have heard this, somebody told me this a long time ago, you know, if a dog is hit by a car, God forbid, and you go out to the middle of the street to help the dog, in its fearful state, it's liable to bite you. And not because the dog is unhappy with you, but because the dog is just so frightened. And a lot of nasty people right now, they're nasty because they are scared half to death. I talk to them often. And so just think about how happy you will be about yourself when you can be kind to somebody who maybe doesn't deserve it, but because you're compassionate, and that makes you happy. I just want to say I learned a lot about happiness from one of my good friends, Ellen Siegel. She wrote a great book called Be Happy No Matter What. You can purchase it online. I've known Ellen for a lot of years. I have to tell you, she practices what she writes about. She really is happy all the time. And everything isn't always wine and roses in her life. That's not the point. And she's not oblivious to things that go wrong and family issues and things of that nature. But she just chooses not to live her life reacting to all that stuff all the time. And I remember I met Patty, my friend who did the beautiful diamond art picture of Schroeder. I met Patty through Ellen, and they went on a cruise. Ellen and Gary and Patty went on a cruise together one time. And when Patty got back, she said, you know what, that Ellen Siegel really is happy no matter what. She said, it's pretty amazing when you spend that much time with somebody, you know. But I think that we might always want to be a little bit more like Ellen than like ourselves. I'm aspiring to do that. Every year I get a little bit more like that, and I think that's a good thing. And again, it's not just being oblivious to what's going on around you. That's stupidity. That's not happiness. It's just basically putting things in perspective and reminding yourself about good things instead of ruminating about bad things. So choose happiness, even when life is difficult, even when things are out of your control, even when other people make decisions that upset you, even when there's a pandemic, even when you're unhappy about life in general. You know, being happy is a choice, and it's not always easy, but I'll tell you what it's easier than. It's easier than living in misery. So once again, choose happiness. All right, remember, I put out a newsletter on Monday, and I put out videos on Wednesdays and Fridays that are a totally different flavor than this, if you know what I mean. And if you want to subscribe to those resources and you're not getting them now, send me an email at pampopper@msn.com, and we will add you to the list. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back to you tomorrow with more things to say.